warrants now to be approved by chief judges. He says, swears in 72 near new sons, page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. Another one says 114 communities don't have GSM signals in Nigeria. CITAD says with a rider 100 million without access to internet. That is found on page 8. A sad one says 12-year-old boy chained for 2 years, rehabilitated in Kebbi, page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune. And Lagos children accident, survivor, mother of victims, relief experiences. With the rider, school closed till January. OPC on guard at FRSC office as police disperse protesters, to be found on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune. Expired 1 million COVID-19 vaccine, our story by federal government. That is on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune for today. Rep probes 91.873 billion naira anchor borrowers loan, with a rider asks BOA to submit names of defaulters. That is on page 22 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on special reports, 9 Moody's rated banks grow assets to 43.814 trillion naira in third quarter. Nigerians' high debt invitation to recolonization and slavery part 2. That is from San Afe Babalola. And on page 21 of the Nigerian Tribune for today, I have the story that says civilization must not erode our culture, Oni of Ife. And NYC board's members applaud Tambowa over camp renovations. Another one says Oja Odon in Yewa North gets first monarch. The 3 stories are found on the page 21 of the Nigerian Tribune. Another one on page 22 says reps probe 91.873 billion naira anchor borrowers loan. Court awards 2 million fine against DSS over seizure of Sore's iPhone, page 25 of the Nigerian Tribune. And Oni calls for Yoruba unity at 6th coronation anniversary, still on page 25 of the Nigerian Tribune. Also, Buhari leads dignitaries to launch of BC Akode's autography in Lagos today. And on page 24 of today's Nigerian Tribune, I have Ekiti 2022. Fayemi has no anointed choice, ex-SSG says as he joins Guba race. And with the rider, Bamishile denies accompanying Oyebamiji to obtain APC forms, page 24 of the Nigerian Tribune. We did not collect bribe from Obaseki to give him tickets, PDP. It's still on page 24. And Ekiti 2022, Bamidele writes APC senators, declares governorship ambition. And on page 28, I have Dowen College parents mourn, demand justice over death of Sylvester Oromoni. And NEMA receives 180 stranded Nigerians from Libya. Both stories are found on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune. On page 29, I have the story that says Sokoto government confirms 23 dead burnt alive are by bandits in Sabongiri local government. Another one says cholera outbreak claims 5 in Bayelsa. Cultists kill 1 in Ogun, take away victims' left hand. Youth sets 2 POS robbers ablaze in Akwa Ibom. And FRSC officials shot dead in Ondo State. All these stories are found on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune. On page 30, I have the story that says 4 abducted Delsu students, 5 others regain freedom, and 12-year-old boy chained for 2 years rehabilitated in Kebbi State. With this, let's go on a short break to be back for the details of the newspaper.
ọgbà tí àṣejìná lòdì ìrànjẹ làwọn aláṣẹ ìjókòtì tí wọ́n fẹ́ máa jẹ ọba ni wọ́n ó ṣe gàyà díẹ̀ ná ìlú ló láṣẹ ẹjẹ́ ìlú ó jẹun náà ìdí nìyí tó fi jẹ́ pé ẹ̀tọ́ ìlú là ń fowó ìlú ṣe nípìnlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ẹ̀rí bí ní ètò ẹ̀kọ́ wa ṣe ń jògèrè LAUTECH ti di tìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ilé ìwòsàn alábọ́dé bíi 40 ló ti wẹ̀wọ̀ ọ̀tun pẹ̀lú àwọn òṣìṣẹ́ tòun tòògùn àti irinṣẹ́ tó pójú owó iṣẹ́ sì ti fẹ́ẹ̀ parí pẹ̀lú lórí 100 míì ìdákẹ́jádò ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ààbò tó dájú ohun amáyédẹrùn ní ìṣokùnfà ìdásílẹ̀ iléeṣẹ́ ńláńlá láwùjọ òun náà nípínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ fi wà nípò kẹta nínú àwọn ìpínlẹ̀ tí ń pawó wọlé jùlọ lábẹ́lé nílẹ̀ wa ọ̀pọ̀ ọ̀dọ́ ló ti láǹfààní ẹ̀kọ́ṣẹ́ iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ lọ́nà ti gbàlódé táṣeyọrí yìí ó sì jẹ́ kó ń jẹ́ sùn wá bọ̀ láìpẹ́ nípínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ àwọn òṣìṣẹ́ àtòṣìṣẹ́ fẹ̀yìntì ń gbowó wọn lásìkò pápá àṣírí Adámàsìngbà àtàwọn inú ojú pópó tí ń sòrú dọ̀sán ńkọ́ àwọn ìlú ti sọ pásì ìwádùn níṣèjọba yìí fi ń mọ rírì gbogbo àwọn aláṣẹ gómìnà Ṣèyí Mákindé ló ń sọ fún wa pé pẹ̀lú ìṣọ̀kan wa oòrùn tó kù lókè yìí ó táṣọ ọgbẹ.
iléeṣẹ́ ètò ìròyìn àṣà ohun ìrìn àjò afẹ́ tìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ló ń kéde.
You're welcome back to Newspaper Review on Alore Radio, transmitted from GSM Studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism Secretariat, Agodi, Ibadan. You can join us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Alore Radio. On YouTube, it is Alore Radio. Our website is www.aloreradio.com. Mobile apps available on Play Store. And the studio line is 090-3985-3731. Let me read the first story for today on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. It says, Finance Bill, no tin, no bank accounts. With a rider, as bill passes second reading, it focuses on closing loopholes, improving tax administrations. Minister, there may be stringent rules in the operation of banks' accounts by Nigerians effective from next year. The Finance Bill 2021, an executive bill sent to the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari, if passed into law, will make the presentation of tax identification number TIN compulsory before opening bank accounts. President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, during plenary on Tuesday, informed his colleagues about the receipt of a letter from President Muhammadu Buhari dated December 7th, 2021, seeking the approval of the Senate for passage of the bill into law. In a lead debate read on the floor of the Red Chamber on Wednesday on the Finance Bill by Senate leader and Senator representing Kebbi North, Yahya Abubakar Abdullahi, and cited by Nigerian Tribune, the bill disclosed that banks will be required to request for TIN before opening bank accounts for individuals, while existing account holders must provide their TIN to continue operating their accounts. For the rest of that story, turn to page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. Finance Bill, no TIN, no bank accounts. And still on page 6, I have the stories on COVID-19 vaccine. It says, most short-shelf life doses utilized before expiration. Federal government. The federal government has said it has utilized most of the over 10 million short shelf life doses of COVID-19 vaccines before the expiration in good time. It also disclosed that the exercise saved governments 16.4 billion naira or more than $4 million in foreign exchange, adding that the vaccines that expired had been withdrawn and will be destroyed accordingly by the National Agency for Food, Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. A statement signed by the Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Onaire, reads, the attention of the Federal Ministry of Health has been drawn to reports circulating in the media to the effect that some COVID-19 vaccines had expired in Nigeria. Nigeria has of late enjoyed the generosity of several, mainly European countries, who have offered us doses of COVID-19 vaccines out of their stockpiles, free of charge, through COVAX or AVAT facilities. These donations are always acknowledged and thankfully received. However, some of them had residual shelf life of only few months that left us very short time, some just weeks, to use them after deduction of time to transport, clear, distribute and deliver to users. If such vaccines arrive back to back or are many, logistic bottlenecks occasionally arise. We appreciate the kind gesture of donors, but also communicated the challenge of short shelf lives, whereupon some manufacturers offered to extend the vaccine shelf life after the fact by 3 months, a practice that, though accepted by experts, is declined by the Federal Ministry of Health because it is not accommodated in our standard. For the rest of that story, turn to page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. COVID-19 vaccine. Most short shelf life doses utilized before expiration. And still on COVID-19, I have this one that says Reps Committee to probe NIPRD on disbursement of 2 billion naira COVID-19 intervention fund. The House of Representatives on Public Accounts Committee, PAC, Wednesday resolved to probe the utilization of the 2 billion naira paid to the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development, NIPRD, for COVID-19 intervention from the service-wide votes account by the federal government. The committee, being chaired by Honorable Busayo Oluwole-Oke, took the decision when the agency, led by its acting director of finance and accounts, Mr. Zama Levis, appeared before the committee to defend spending of releases made through the service-wide votes of the federal government from 2013 to 2022. For the rest of that story, turn to page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. Reps Committee to probe NIPRD on disbursement of 2 billion naira COVID-19 intervention fund. And on page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune, I have building collapse. NICOM urged Kano State government to collaborate with town planners. The National Insurance Commission, NICOM, has urged the Kano State government to empower its joint committee on the implementation of compulsory insurance in the state to consider the issue of collapsed building posing challenges in major cities in the country. The Commissioner for Insurance and Chief Executive of the National Insurance Commission, NICOM, Mr. Olorundare Sunday Thomas, stated this during the sensitization program for top functionaries in Kano State on implementation and enforcement of compulsory insurance in the state on Tuesday. He advised that the state agencies that approve the monitor construction should be given a mandate to look into matter and collaborate with other agencies like the Town Planning Authority, fire services, police and relevant professional associations like COREN, such of which should also be co-opted into the committee. For the rest of that story, turn to page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. On page 8, I have the story that says incessant prison breaks. Why we won't resign, Aregbesola, with a rider as fake OK's purchase of 49 green Maria's other vehicles for prisons. Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola has said he will not resign from office despite the rampant successful attacks on the nation's custodial facilities, which have unleashed thousands of criminals in the society. Speaking to correspondents after the meeting of the Federal Executive Council (FEC) at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, on Wednesday, he said there were many factors responsible for the development, while assuring that the federal government is doing all that is necessary to make the facilities impregnable. Aregbesola noted that a number of prison officials died defending the custodial centers, which he said is the highest form of honor for the country. He explained, and I quote, Imo was in April this year, Kaba was in September, Abolongo was in October, and Jos was in November. As painful as those attacks were, very painful, nobody will really want the end of justice to be so vulnerable. The custodial facilities are the final end of justice administration. So morally, the state owes itself the responsibility of safe custody that must not be violated. On that account alone, we must appreciate the enormity of any successful attack on custodial facilities, and I so do. For the rest of that story, turn to page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. Incessant prison breaks. Why I won't resign, Aregbesola. And reps to Buhari deploy special security forces to rescue kidnapped victims in Lagos or the states. The House of Representatives on Wednesday urged the federal government to deploy special forces drawn from Nigerian Police Force, Nigerian Army, and Nigerian Navy on a rescue mission to free the kidnapped victims in Lagos and other parts of the country. The resolution was passed following the adoption of a motion sponsored by Honorable Adewale Egberongbe. The House also urged the federal government to carry out training for special forces across the security agencies that will be mandated to patrol waterways, creeks, and highways across the country. Turn to page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune for the rest of that story. Reps to Buhari deploy special security forces to rescue kidnapped victims in Lagos or the states. And on page 15 of today's Nigerian Tribune, okay, on page 14, most agreements between ASU and federal government reach under duress. Permanent Secretary. Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Education, Architect Sonny Ekono, has insisted that only a sustainable funding model that allows universities to practice their professed autonomy will guarantee industrial peace and harmony in public universities in Nigeria. It disclosed that most agreements reached between the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and the federal government are signed under duress, usually to end the prevailing crisis, especially when students have been at home for several months, coupled with the pressure from the public on the need to reach compromise for a particular strike to be called off. He said this accounted for why successive administrations in the country had not been able to implement most aspects of such agreements into which the union wanted years after they were signed. For the rest of that story, turn to page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune. Most agreements between ASU and federal government reached under duress. Permanent Secretary. And another one says 2022 UTME, JAMB moves to curb extortion of candidates, introduces cashless registration. The Joint Administration and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has said that it would adopt a cashless policy in the registration process of 2022 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination UTME as a way to curb extortion of candidates. Accordingly, the board said it will be collecting the approved 700 naira registration fee on behalf of the various computer-based test centers along its UTME registration fees. This new policy was made known in a weekly bulletin of the board obtained in Abuja. JAMB explained that the money due to each registration center will be remitted to relevant bank accounts on a weekly basis or any time frame acceptable to the center owners. It said its decision to go cashless in the UTME registration exercise will put an end to some of the fraudulent activities of some CBT centers, which charges candidates above stipulated fees. Turn to page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune for the rest of the story. It says 2022 UTME, JAMB moves to curb extortion of student candidates, introduces cashless registration. And on page 17, I have former aviation minister calls for more funding, training of air personnel. A former minister of aviation, Air Vice Marshal Anthony Opere, retired, has called for more funding of facilities and training of personnel to further enhance safety in the sector. Speaking in Abuja at the just concluded annual general meeting (AGM) of the National Association of Air Traffic Communicators (NACAN), AVM Opere, who was the chairman of the occasion, while reacting to the issue of shortage of personnel in the aviation industry, noted that except the gap in the sector between those retiring and serving personnel was bridged, the industry may soon start experiencing problems. His words: "The job they are doing is so important. Except we find a way to bridge that gap, we will soon have problems. We talked about modern means of communications. Except we spend money, the lives of people and the industry is in danger." End of quote. For the rest of that story, turn to page 17 of the Nigerian Tribune for today, the 9th December 2021. It says former aviation minister calls for funding training of air personnel. On page 20 of the Nigerian Tribune, I have 2 vaccine doses may not provide sufficient protection against Omicron. Pfizer. Preliminary lab studies show 2 doses of the Pfizer/BioNTech vaccine may not provide sufficient protection against the Omicron coronavirus variant, but 3 doses are able to neutralize it, the company said in a news release on Wednesday. Samples from people who had 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine saw on average a more than 25-fold reduction in neutralization ability against the Omicron variant than the earlier virus, indicating that 2 doses of BNT 162b2 may not be sufficient to protect against infection with the Omicron variant, the company said. The company said 2 doses may still provide protection against several diseases, CNN reported, although 2 doses of the vaccine may still offer protection against various diseases caused by the Omicron strain. It's clear from this preliminary data that protection is improved with a 3rd dose of our vaccine, Pfizer chairman and CEO Albert Bourla said in a statement. For the rest of that story, turn to page 20 of the Nigerian Tribune. 2 vaccine doses may not provide sufficient protection against Omicron, Pfizer says. And the last story I'm going to read today is taken from page 21 of the Nigerian Tribune. It says, civilization must not erode our culture, Ooni. The Ooni of Ife, Oba Adeyeye Enitan Ogunwusi, has restated the need for the Yoruba, both home and in diaspora, to promote the rich cultural value of the race and not allow civilization to erode the age-long value bequeathed on us by the forebearers. The traditional ruler explained that Yoruba blessed with diverse cultural endowments that must be protected and promoted by all and sundry to effect the needed social-economic change in the society. Oba Ogunwusi stated this at the first coronation anniversary of the Ore of Otun Ekiti, Oba Adekunle Adeagbo, in Mobile local government area of the state. He emphasized the need for people to work together in unity, noting that Yoruba race could achieve more in the country with unity of purpose and in the atmosphere of peace. For the rest of that story, turn to page 21 of the Nigerian Tribune. Civilization must not erode our culture, Ooni. And with that, we've come to the end of today's newspaper review. Join us tomorrow by 9 o'clock for the Yoruba version and 9:30 for the English version. You are on to Alore Radio, transmitting from GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism Secretariat, Agodi, Ibadan. I am Olukemi Omotosho. Thanks for listening and have a good day.
Ọgbà tí àṣejìná lóde ìrànjẹ́ làwọn aláṣejókòtì tí wọ́n fẹ́ máa jẹ ọba ni wọ́n ó ṣe gàyà díẹ̀ ná ìlú ló láṣẹ ẹjẹ́ ìlú ó jẹun náà ìdí nìyí tó fi jẹ́ pé ẹ̀tọ́ ìlú là ń fowó ìlú ṣe nípìnlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ẹ̀rí bí ní ètò ẹ̀kọ́ wa ṣe ń jògeere LAUTECH ti di tìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ilé ìwòsàn alábọ́dé bíi 40 ló ti wẹ̀wọ̀ ọ̀tún pẹ̀lú àwọn òṣìṣẹ́ tòun tòògùn àti irinṣẹ́ tó pójú owó iṣẹ́ sì ti fẹ́ẹ̀ parí pẹ̀lú lórí 100 míì ìdákẹ́jádò ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ààbò tó dájú òun ohun amáyédẹrùn ní ìṣokùnfà ìdásílẹ̀ iléeṣẹ́ ńláńlá láwùjọ òun náà nípínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ fi wà nípò kẹta nínú àwọn ìpínlẹ̀ tí ń pawó wọlé jùlọ lábẹ́lé nílẹ̀ wa ọ̀pọ̀ ọ̀dọ́ ló ti láǹfààní ẹ̀kọ́ṣẹ́ iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ lọ́nà ti gbàlódé táṣeyọrí yìí ó sì jẹ́ kó ń jẹ́ sùn wá bọ̀ láìpẹ́ nípínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ àwọn òṣìṣẹ́ àtòṣìṣẹ́ fẹ̀yìntì ń gbowó wọn lásìkò pápá àṣírí Adámàsìngbà àtàwọn inú ojú pópó tí ń sòrú dọ̀sán kọ́ àwọn ìlú ti sọ pásì ìwádùn níṣèjọba yìí fi ń mọ rírì gbogbo àwọn aláṣẹ gómìnà Ṣèyí Mákindé ló ń sọ fún wa pé pẹ̀lú ìṣọ̀kan wa oòrùn tó kù lókè yìí ó táṣọ ọgbẹ.
iléeṣẹ́ ètò ìròyìn àṣà ohun ìrìn àjò afẹ́ tìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ló ń kéde.